being held in support of current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later today. Currently, Netanyahu's trailing the polls in the final days before the election Saturday evening. The three-term leader participated in a long-awaited debate with Zionist Union Party leader Isaac Herzog. The main focus of the debate, security concerns for Jerusalem. Netanyahu is expected to convene the last cabinet meeting of the 33rd Israeli government this hour. Netanyahu put into motion the dissolution of the current parliament late last year after removing two senior cabinet members for criticizing government policy. Well, let's bring in Sheera Frenkel, Middle East correspondent for BuzzFeed, for more analysis on the upcoming Israeli election. Thanks very much for joining us. Let's start off, Sheera, with, what we've seen the last couple of years. Recent years, Israel's electorate veering towards more the right, security. Those turning towards the right and security as a priority. But now we're seeing them tilt to the left slightly on economic concerns. How much do you think socio-economic issues will influence this election?
Well, there's no doubt that we're seeing a trend that started in the previous elections, which is that Israelis want their politicians talking about socioeconomic issues. It's not something that's new, that they want that as part of the campaign, that they want platforms that are going to guarantee them lower cost of housing, better education for their children. What's new is that this time around, Israelis might actually go forward and vote based on those actual issues. In the last elections, I sat down with a family right before they went to the ballots, and they said, listen, I've talked a lot about the economy, but honestly, when it comes down to it, I'm worried about my security, so I'm going to go vote for Netanyahu. These elections, I went back to that same family, which I should mention lives in Sderot, which is on the Gaza border. And to no family, I think, is security issues more important than those families living by Sderot. And that same family told me that enough's enough. They're fed up. They voted for Netanyahu election after election for security reasons. And this time around, they're going to vote for another candidate because for them, the price of their home, the rising price of their home, has become more of a danger than rockets coming from Gaza.
Yeah, and so on that case, does this hurt Benjamin Netanyahu, who many see as being stronger on security issues? And of course, we've seen Isaac Herzog really focusing on the economy and the socio-economic issues.
Netanyahu is known to a lot of Israelis as a security man. They vote for him based on his security credentials, his past in the IDF, and his family's past in the IDF. He's now been campaigning a bit more on economic issues. We've seen him mentioning it more in interviews with Israeli politicians. I should also mention that Netanyahu is doing interviews with the Israeli press for the first time in years. And so Israelis are hearing him speak more not just on the security, but on the day-to-day realities of the cost of living here in Israel.
And staying on the economy, because I think this is very important, are voters, from what you've been hearing in the streets, you're intrigued by Mr. Herzog's promise to spend big on education, health, poverty, and affordable housing. What are you hearing from people on the streets?
What I'm hearing is that it's become an untenable situation here for a lot of Israelis. The average Israeli does not make enough money to ever be able to afford to buy a house. The price of really basic foodstuffs here in Israel, they like to talk about the price of cottage cheese because cottage cheese is a very popular item in most Israeli houses. It's gotten to the point where they can't afford to bring that home for their kids. More and more young Israelis are leaving the country after they get an education, looking for jobs in places like Berlin and in Australia. And what we're hearing is that they need a massive shift. They need a shift towards more affordable housing, higher paying jobs, greater pension funds for the elderly. And they want to see politicians really address those. They're sort of sick of election after election where politicians talk about Iran and they talk about Hamas and Hezbollah. They want to see their politicians talk about the day-to-day realities.
Yeah, indeed. Sheera Frenkel there for us, Middle East correspondent from BuzzFeed. Thanks very much, Sheera, for taking the time to speak to us this morning. Well, still to come right here on CNN as Iraqi forces battle for the town of Tikrit. ISIS is making another